What if the loneliest person in the world is staring back at you from the mirror? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? You can be in a crowded room, laughing at a joke, surrounded by people, but on the inside, there's this deep, quiet echo. That's the thing about loneliness. It doesn't care how many people are around you. In this video, we're not just going to talk about why you feel this way. We're going to dive deep into what's actually happening in your brain and body, and I'll walk you through a real, step-by-step plan that goes way beyond the useless advice you've already heard. Stay with me because the last step we'll cover is something almost everyone gets wrong: the great misunderstanding about loneliness. Let's get one thing straight right away. Loneliness and being alone are not the same thing. Being alone is a physical state. You're just not around other people. That's called solitude, and it can be amazing. It's where you can recharge, think clearly, and just be yourself without any pressure. Loneliness, on the other hand, is a feeling. It's a painful, subjective feeling that the connections you want are not the connections you have. It's a gap between what you crave socially and what your reality is.
You can be a soldier in a platoon, a student in a packed lecture hall, or even at your own birthday party and feel profoundly lonely. And you're not alone in feeling this way. Before the world went a little crazy a few years ago, a major study by the health company Cigna found that 3 out of 5 adults in the US reported being lonely. That's over 60%. Imagine looking at 5 people walking down the street. Statistically, 3 of them are carrying that same quiet echo inside. It's an invisible epidemic. So, if you're feeling this, know that it's not a personal failure. It's not because you're broken or weird. It's a human signal, just like hunger or thirst. Hunger tells you your body needs food. Thirst tells you it needs water. Loneliness is a signal from your brain and body telling you that you need meaningful connection. It's a survival instinct. Why it physically hurts. Have you ever noticed that loneliness can feel like a physical ache? There's a reason for that. Our ancestors survived because they stuck together in tribes. Being cast out from the group was basically a death sentence. You'd have no protection, no one to help find food, no one to watch your back. So our brains evolved a powerful alarm system to prevent that from happening: the pain of loneliness. Neuroscientists have actually studied this. They put people in an fMRI machine, which is a big scanner that shows brain activity. They found that the feeling of social exclusion, of being left out, activates the exact same part of the brain that lights up when you feel physical pain. The part is called the anterior cingulate cortex. So when you say that being rejected or feeling lonely hurts, you're not being dramatic. Your brain is literally processing it in the same way it would process a broken arm.
But it goes deeper. Chronic loneliness puts your body into a constant state of high alert. It's like your internal danger signal is always on. This floods your system with stress hormones like cortisol. Over time, high cortisol levels can lead to all sorts of problems. It messes with your sleep, weakens your immune system, and can lead to inflammation. The late Dr. John Cacioppo, a pioneering researcher in this field, basically dedicated his life to studying this. His work showed that chronic loneliness is a bigger risk factor for early death than smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day or being obese. This isn't just about feeling sad, it's a serious health issue. The problem with just put yourself out there. So you feel this pain, you know it's a problem, and what does everyone tell you? Just go out more, join a club, talk to people. And if you're feeling lonely, this might be the most frustrating advice on the planet. It's like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. It completely ignores the real reason you're stuck. When you're lonely, your brain isn't exactly in a friendly, open, and social mood. It's in threat mode. It becomes hyper-vigilant to social cues, but in a negative way. You start to expect rejection. You walk into a room and you're not thinking, who can I connect with? You're scanning for who might ignore you, who might judge you. A neutral look from a stranger isn't seen as neutral. It's seen as proof that they don't like you. Your mind starts telling you stories like, I'm too awkward. I have nothing interesting to say. They can probably tell I'm desperate. Trying to force yourself into a big, loud social situation when your brain is in this state is like trying to have a delicate, important conversation next to a blaring fire alarm. You can't. You're overwhelmed. This is why just put yourself out there so often backfires. You go to a party, you feel awkward, you stand in a corner, you talk to no one, and you go home feeling even worse than before. You now have fresh evidence to confirm your brain's negative story. See, I told you, you don't belong. We need a smarter approach. We need to work with our brains, not against them. The real path forward. All right, let's get into the good stuff. The actual, practical, step-by-step game plan. This isn't about one giant leap. It's about small, consistent steps that rewire your brain and slowly close that gap between the connection you want and the connection you have. Step 1. Become an observer, not a victim. The first step has nothing to do with other people. It has everything to do with the conversation happening between your ears. As we said, a lonely brain tells scary stories. Your job is to stop believing them automatically. I want you to try a technique from mindfulness. When that thought pops up, nobody wants to hang out with me. I want you to mentally rephrase it. Instead, say to yourself, I'm having the thought that nobody wants to hang out with me. See the difference? It's small, but it's powerful. Nobody wants to hang out with me feels like a fact. It feels like a judgment on your worth. But I'm having the thought that frames it for what it is, just a thought. It's a bit of mental noise your brain is producing because it's in threat mode. You don't have to argue with the thought or fight it. You just observe it, label it, and let it pass by like a cloud in the sky. Doing this creates a little bit of space between you and the feeling. It gives you a moment to breathe and realize that your thoughts are not always the truth. They're just suggestions, and you don't have to accept every suggestion your brain makes. This is the foundation. Without this, every other step is 10 times harder because you'll be fighting your own mind the whole way. Step 2. Figure out your flavor of loneliness. Not all loneliness is the same. Researchers have identified 3 main types, and knowing which one is affecting you the most is like getting a proper diagnosis before you try to find a cure. The first is intimate loneliness. This is the lack of a deep, close, confiding connection with someone. This is your person, a best friend, a partner, a family member you can call at 3 a.m. when things fall apart. You can have 100 friends you go out with, but if you don't have at least one person you can be truly vulnerable with, you'll feel this type of loneliness. The second is relational loneliness. This is the lack of a circle of friends, colleagues, or neighbors who share your interests and with whom you have regular, enjoyable contact. These are the people you go to the movies with, play sports with, or just grab a casual coffee with. It's your social circle, your tribe. Lacking this can make you feel like you don't have a place in the world. The third is collective loneliness. This is the lack of a connection to a larger group or community that shares your sense of purpose or identity. This could be your connection to your school, your company, a volunteer group, a religious community, or even being a fan of a sports team. It's the feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself. So, take a moment and honestly ask yourself, which of these is hitting you the hardest right now? Is it the lack of a single deep confidant, the lack of a fun friend group, or the feeling of not belonging to any community? Knowing this helps you focus your energy. If you're suffering from intimate loneliness, going to a giant concert probably won't help much. If you're suffering from collective loneliness, trying to turn a coworker into a deep best friend might not be the right first move. Pinpoint the need. Step 3. Go for quality, not a crowd. Now that you know what you're looking for, we need to bust a myth. The myth that you need tons of friends to not be lonely. This is completely false. What the research actually shows is that the quality of your relationships is far more important than the quantity. 1 or 2 truly solid friendships can completely protect you from the pain of loneliness. So instead of thinking, how do I meet new people, start by asking, how can I deepen the connections I already have? Think about the people already in your life, your acquaintances, your coworkers, your classmates. Is there anyone there who you feel a little spark of potential with? Someone you find interesting or kind? Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take one of those shallow relationships and try to move it one step deeper. This doesn't have to be some grand, dramatic gesture. It can be tiny. If you usually just say hi to a coworker, ask them a specific question about their weekend, like, hey, you mentioned you were going hiking. How was it? And then actually listen to the answer. If there's an acquaintance you think is cool, send them a meme or a link to an article you think they'd like with a simple message. Saw this and thought of you. These are what I call connection bids. You're gently tossing out a small signal of interest and seeing what comes back. The stakes are incredibly low. If they don't respond much, no big deal. You haven't lost anything. But if they do, you've just opened a door. You've taken a relationship from acquaintance to friendly acquaintance. And from there, you can slowly build. This is a much less scary and more effective strategy than trying to walk into a room of 100 strangers and make a friend from scratch. Step 4. The action plan of winnable battles. Okay, so what if you feel like you really don't have anyone to start with, or you want to expand your circle? This is where we need a plan based on small, winnable battles. Forget going to a bar or going to a party. Those are high-pressure environments. We need low-pressure environments where the social interaction isn't the main event, it's a side effect. The secret here is shared interests. When you're engaged in an activity you genuinely enjoy, you're not focused on being awkward, you're focused on the thing. And that makes conversation happen naturally. Think about what you actually like to do, or what you've always been curious about. Do you like books? Join a book club at your local library. Do you like animals? Volunteer at an animal shelter one morning a week. Do you like being outside? Find a local hiking or walking group on Meetup or Facebook. Do you want to learn something? Take a pottery class, a language class, an improv class. The key is consistency. Going once is a gamble. Going every week for 2 months, that's a strategy. You start to see the same faces. You become a familiar presence. Small talk about the activity, like, wow, my pot is so lopsided, can slowly turn into real conversations. You're building connections organically without the pressure of a formal social event. Another powerful tool here is what's called a third place. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg coined this term. The first place is your home. The second place is your work. The third place is a public setting where you can just go to exist and connect informally. This could be a coffee shop you become a regular at, a dog park, a community garden, or even a specific bench in a park. By becoming a regular, you build a sense of belonging and create opportunities for spontaneous, low-stakes interactions that can chip away at feelings of isolation.
The secret no one tells you. We've talked about your mindset, about understanding your needs, about deepening connections, and about finding your tribe. But now we come to the final step, the one that ties it all together, and the one most people miss completely. The ultimate antidote to loneliness isn't just about finding other people. It's about learning how to be truly, deeply, and comfortably connected with yourself. This sounds like a paradox, right? To solve loneliness, you need to get better at being alone? Yes, exactly. Because if you can't stand your own company, you'll always be seeking out others from a place of desperation and neediness. And people can sense that. It puts pressure on them. It makes you dependent on their validation to feel okay. But when you cultivate a rich inner life, when you learn to enjoy your own solitude, everything changes. You start interacting with people not because you need them to save you from your own thoughts, but because you want to share your already interesting life with them. You come from a place of fullness, not a place of emptiness. So, how do you do this? You date yourself. Seriously. Take yourself out. Go to a movie alone. Go to a restaurant with a good book and enjoy a meal by yourself. Go for a long walk in nature without your phone. At first, it might feel weird. You might feel self-conscious, but push through that. The goal is to prove to your own brain that your own company is pretty great. You also do it by rediscovering what makes you, you. What are you curious about? What hobbies did you used to love but let go of? Spend time doing things just for the joy of it, with no other goal. Paint, write, play music, learn code, fix an old bike. When you are absorbed in an activity you love, you are in a state of flow. And in that state, loneliness cannot exist. You are fully engaged and connected with yourself. This is the key. Building a strong, compassionate relationship with yourself is the foundation upon which all other healthy relationships are built. When you truly befriend yourself, you are never truly alone. You become your own home base, your own source of comfort. Other people become wonderful, amazing additions to your life, but not the entire basis of your happiness. That's a game changer. That's true freedom. Bringing it all home. So, let's zoom out. Loneliness is a universal human signal, a pain that tells you to seek connection. But the old advice of just get out there is broken because it ignores the internal state of a lonely brain. The real path forward is smarter. It starts with observing your negative thoughts instead of becoming them. It involves pinpointing what kind of connection you're truly missing: intimate, relational, or collective. It's about focusing on deepening the quality of your connections, not just chasing a quantity of friends. It's about engaging in shared interests in low-pressure settings to build community naturally. And, most importantly, it's about building the most critical relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. This isn't a quick fix, it's a journey. But every small step you take on this path is a victory. You are not broken, you are human, and you have the power to change this feeling, one connection at a time, starting with the one in the mirror. If this video helped you in any way, subscribe to RainWish for more content like this. Goodbye.